Michelle. How's it going?
Oh, just living, man.
Living. Can you believe it's June?
I was just going to ask you. I posted on my Instagram that we are in the 6th month of the year, which means we're halfway through the year. And someone came for me and was like, we're not halfway through June. So we are not technically halfway through the year. And I said, you know what? You're right. And I'm doing what I said I don't like the other people do, which is jump forward in time. Round up. Do not round up time-wise.
Don't round up. We are squarely in the day of June 6th as we record this.
Although I would round up to it's the end of the day.
It's past 3 o'clock. It might as well be over.
Truly. Truly. The brain is gone.
Yeah.
So let's just see how this episode goes.
Can't promise anything. And that's actually why we're here. Because it's kind of a perfect time of year to do a little reset.
Is there like a moment where you like to do a mid-year review?
I don't know if I have specifically done it always in the same month. I'm very much a back to school loving kid.
Mm-hmm.
So usually kind of end of August, I'm having that feeling.
Yeah.
But I also feel like right now, I don't know, in LA, it's a little bit of June gloom vibes. Mm-hmm. There's been that recently, and I'm preparing for a few weeks of travel. So I also feel like it's a reflective time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put a it's not a box of where I have to be. What about you?
I've always felt like summer, it's probably from school days, but like summer is this almost like downtime where you can kind of like move in silence and like tinker and also play. Mm-hmm. Before you have to really like settle down and dig in. And so I like this time because even though I like to just kind of review, like, okay, what did I say I wanted to do in January? Am I close to doing that? Or am I really far off? And I just have to reassess and sort of reorient myself in the direction that I want to go in. And then I feel like summer gives me this like free time to go and explore that thing. Like whatever my new goals are, maybe go learn or experiment or get away or get inspired. Because sometimes I'm just like, I got no thoughts.
No thoughts.
Just a smooth brain. I'm burnt out or feeling burnt out. And summer kind of revitalizes that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I always feel like summer solstice is a nice time because it's that true midpoint.
Yes, that's such a good point. I always forget about that. Yeah. Longest day of the year.
Yeah, it's definitely a portal moment. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's important to not mistake that like fun, playful, exploratory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a word.
Time for something else as like unproductive or whatnot. And I think to your point, I think a lot of people are burnt out from just accumulated things over the past 2 years that have led to that.
Yeah.
Many things, especially a lot of what's been happening in the past few weeks and months. And I think that taking time to rest and play and be easy with some like light intention is a nice way to approach.
We know that it's necessary for our brains and also our intuition. I think like when you get too sort of analytical and regimented, I would even say disciplined with yourself, like your intuition doesn't really have any place to go. And I think ritual is really important, right? Like, or creating a system around yourself that supports you, but you still need freedom and play in order to like really download the things that are supposed to come through, you know?
Yeah, to create the space for them to come through, to be able to hear it.
Yeah. Like we're going on a team vacation pretty much. It's like a research, it's not a vacation to my accountant, to the IRS. It's like an exploratory, let's go get inspired. And like, we're going to Italy as a team and we're going to just go maybe make a few podcast episodes, but we're not approaching this in the same way that we approach like our typical work sessions where we all are together, which are super intense.
Very productive.
Extremely productive, but we're all like exhausted afterwards.
Yes.
This is not so much that. It's a little bit more like, let's just go be inspired and see what comes out of that. Because as really creative and intuitive people, you need it.
Oh yeah, totally. It's the fuel.
It's true. The best stuff comes from that. I think that this is a good time to obviously check in and figure out like gut check. How do I feel? What do I need? Mm-hmm. And also like what's been working and what has not been working. Because if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling overwhelmed, like something's not working for you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting to think about, what has been easeful that I didn't expect to be? And then what has been stickier, not to say that that's negative, but to reflect on that and say, what do I want more of? What do I want less of in the next 6 months?
Yeah. Like, where am I really efforting? And I think, I don't know about you, but I relate efforting to like not having pleasure in something I'm doing. And I can do things that take a lot of my time and brain power, but they're really pleasurable to me. Like making content, even though it takes us a lot of time. Like making this podcast takes us a lot of time.
It's true.
It takes you even more time than me. But it's always fun. It pretty much always feels good. But there are other things where I'm like, oh, so much. I'm tired. Can't do this thing. And that's a good sign that it's like something has to shift, because that's not sustainable.
Yeah, this is an interesting time to think about sustainability. Because it's so cliche, but true, that it's really about like compounding habits for so many of the things that at least I want to do in my life are really boiled down to like small acts consistently. And it's so easy to forget that, for one, or take it for granted. And so it's really a great time to look at, okay, where have I been doing that? And where is it kind of not feeling great? Or where have I not been doing it? And I'm like, hey, that's not really lining up with what I say I'm doing. Or what I think I want.
James Clear has that amazing analysis of like, if you just focus on being 1% better every day, which is a small amount, you know, you don't have to like climb the mountain on the first day. By the end of the year, you'll be 365% better, which is like way fucking better than when you started. That's a quantum leap. But it means that you have to have incremental growth every day. To your point, like you got to be consistent with it, as opposed to sort of like fits and starts. So I love what you just said about prioritization and how you're spending your time.
Let's talk about it.
I feel like we have our NPR voices on today.
I feel like I'm going to go to bed.
Let's talk about our sweaty balls.
Sweaty balls.
Okay, prioritization. This is a real like bitch slap when you hear this. So, okay, what are your priorities, listener? Just say them out loud. Whatever they are. Maybe 3 to 5, 5 to 10. Family, work, health, spirituality, community, etc. Whatever they might be. Now, think about how you spend your time. Do your priorities match how you spend your time? Because guess what? How you spend your time will reflect what your true priorities are. Instead of saying, I don't have time to do something, say to yourself, that's not a priority for me. Anytime you're like, oh, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to call my mom. I don't have time to go to the grocery store and get something healthy. Say to yourself instead, that's not a priority for me. It's not a priority for me to call my mom. It's not a priority for me to eat healthy. It's not a priority for me to be healthy in my body and whatever, help with my stress.
Also, that's kind of a quick way to understand, is it actually not a priority, or there's another reason you're resisting it?
Right. Yeah. Like if you are nervous about phoning a friend. I feel this a lot because I have like friend anxiety, you know, as an ADHD person, where I'm like, oh, I don't want to call them back, but I do want to talk to them, but I don't want to call them back. Like, are they really not a priority to me? Absolutely not. No, it's just that like I'm uncomfortable and I just got to get over it.
Well, not you just need to get over it, but also a friend mentioned this to me in terms of, if another way to use prioritization is if you can't make a decision and you feel confused, you're like, I don't even know what I want. I can't make this decision, which happens a lot when we have so much choice as we do in life right now for so many different reasons. Instead of asking yourself constantly and weighing the pros and cons and trying to figure it out, look at what you're actually doing. How are you spending your time, money, energy between those decisions that you say you can't decide between? And usually it'll point you in the direction of what you actually want, or that you're at odds with what you're currently doing.
I feel like we've been getting that question a lot. Like, where do I start? How do I prioritize? In Creators Cashing In, and it's something that we focus on so much in system spells, because you have to start somewhere when you build a system. So figuring out, like, first off, what matters to you? Like, what do you care about? Because often we don't know. And often, like, we've never been asked. We've never been asked, well, what do you think? What do you like? Other people have told us how to be, how to think, what matters to them. Society has pushed like its priorities on us. When we really stop and ask ourselves, does that matter to me? We come up empty because it doesn't. And so there's no energy, like forward motion in the, let's say, getting a better job or buying a house or whatever it is that's getting married that society tells you have to do in order to, like, to fit in and be acceptable.
Yeah.
We're like, I just like, I'm not vibing on that.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a mismatch. Maybe you could say energetically or in terms of your priorities. So what do you do? How does one go about this?
Go about figuring out what your priorities are?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think you have to just ask yourself first, like, what do I want? And that's where I think future visioning really helps, because often in the moment, I'm like, well, I want a million things and what I want doesn't matter. What's better for other people matters. Anyone codependent here? That might resonate with you. But when I can just jump on the timeline in the future, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, usually further away, and I can see, like, what kind of life do I want to have around me? What matters to me? Who's around me? How do I feel? My priorities become a lot more clear because it's almost like my day-to-day stuff is more vague.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're not just basing your decisions on immediate gratification.
And when we talk about, like, making a quantum leap or future visioning, we talk about embodiment. And if you look 10 years into the future for yourself, just close your eyes and get centered and ask, like, the timeline to take you there. If you see, like, stillness, calm, nature, family, like, those are all things that you can prioritize today. And immediately begin to embody that future version of you, which is what creates a quantum leap, which helps you collapse the timeline. But really, it's just because you focus on your priorities as opposed to, like, all the other static that's getting in the way.
It's also a way to just cut through a lot of the confusion and noise. A lot of these, like, productivity books, I feel like come back to another book we always reference, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Yeah. Which has such a basic principle. And I also appreciate this book isn't very long.
No, it's also a great audiobook. Very fast audiobook.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good I feel like I've read it a few times.
Me too.
You just need refreshers because our society and our lives are not designed to be essentialists or minimalists. We're always kind of being asked to do the opposite. And one of his main points is that you can do anything, but you can't do everything, especially all at once. And so realizing that by prioritizing and choosing things more specifically at one point in your life doesn't mean that you can't have or do the other things. It actually probably means that you can at a different time versus kind of spreading yourself too thin and not moving in any direction specifically.
I love that saying.
Yeah.
I think it's, like, very liberating.
Yeah.
Even though it feels maybe like it's shutting down, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. I'm like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
And like, just like you can't multitask and do magic, which we say all the time, like, you can do magic. You just can't, like, also be watching Hulu.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can do both those things, just not at the same time. It's all good.
Yeah.
Like, everything in its due time. Life is long, as Ethan and I like to tell each other. Life is long. We've got plenty of time.
Yes.
You know? Okay, so once we've, like, figured out our priorities, what happens next? If you're sitting as a listener here on this episode and you're like, okay, looking at my goals from January, not looking good.
Damn it.
Or maybe they're looking, like, half of them are looking really good. And the other half, you're like, I forgot I wrote that down. Or maybe you didn't even write goals down. You're like, nope. Do not know if I've made any traction in any direction. Feel like I'm a little bit on a treadmill going nowhere. But I'm working a ton and I'm exhausted, but I'm not really seeing results. Great time to reprioritize. Yes. And take whatever your priorities are now when you think about your future vision, when you think about essentialism, and build a new system for yourself. And I would also say, I think starting with what hasn't been working for you is key.
Because you can let it go.
Yeah. And I mean, for you, Wallace, like, how do you know when something hasn't been working for you? Whether it's like a process you've created for yourself or a relationship or even like a project that you're working on. How do you kind of touched on it, like something might feel out of sorts, but how do you really, like, get clear on that? Because I think it comes up so much in silly things, from like how we clean our house or how we keep our house or how we pay our bills to like how we actually do our work.
Two things come to mind immediately, and we talk about this a lot in System Spells. if you're not using a system, it's not working. Even if you think you should, even if you're like, this is the thing for me. I recently have been using Post-its more around my house.
Nice.
And I've always avoided that because I'm like, that's corny. That's fucking tacky. But it works.
They do work.
It works for me for little things, like bigger things I like to have on Notion that are kind of ongoing. But things like, don't forget that you have things at the tailor.
Yes.
And they're only open on this day. You have to go pick it up or else you will fucking forget.
Yeah.
And even if I have it on my calendar, sometimes it'll get pushed or whatever. That's just a small example, but just reminders like that have helped me. And I think knowing that I'm not somebody where certain types of lists or journals are going to work and figuring out which ones work for me and just not wasting your time trying to fit yourself into a system that you're like, clearly that's not my jam. That's not my style. So if I'm not using it,
yeah,
you're like, it's really pretty. Haven't touched it in the last 6 months.
Yep. It's a no-go. It's time to
then
shift.
The second big thing is if it feels like, I guess I always describe it because I'm pretty visual, as it feels like I'm walking in deep mud.
Yes.
And I'm trying to like jog, or I'm not even jog. I'm just trying to walk.
Just leisurely walk.
And I'm like, this is so effortful.
Yes.
It feels not totally painful, but almost, because it's frustrating. So for me, frustration is a big one.
MG.
Yeah, it's my not self thing. And it's really real. So usually that's when I'm like, I have to revisit this, I have to rework it, or I have to let it go and allow it to come back in a different form.
Yeah, that reminds me of the framework of Agile. That's a system of way of doing things. And it's building like an Agile system. You think about the work not done versus the work done. Right. You want to minimize work as much as possible. You want to do the least amount of work. You want it to be agile. You want it to be like water just like flowing down a mountain. Like that's it. No effort, the smallest amount of effort that's needed. And yeah, if you feel like you're always efforting, first off, you're going to burn out. Yeah. And second, another great concept from Agile is if you can't, you should be able to sustain the pace that you're at indefinitely. And that's something I have to remind myself of a lot because I find...
I don't really think our society's set up for that. I think it's a nice idea that we could all aspire to.
I think it's a really important idea that we need to aspire to because
exactly like sustainability.
Yes.
On all accounts.
Yes. We are like pulling fossil fuels from the environment just at a rapid rate and burning through this planet. Yeah. Like it's completely unsustainable.
No, I just get pessimistic about it quickly because it feels like,
impossible.
Yeah.
Because it feels like no one wants to change. Yeah. And that's hard. But it's a Debbie Downer moment. But I think like personally, it's also important to think about because I don't know about you, but I noticed myself being like, okay, this next 2 weeks, I just have to like push really hard. I have to like get through this and then I'll have downtime. And I don't really do that. Like I don't really create downtime for myself. I have a vacuum of where I was like exerting my energy. And so I just fill up, especially I used to fill it up with more stuff, with more commitments, with more stress. And that's partially because of my brain chemistry. I'm like looking for stimulation all the time because I have ADHD, as a lot of intuitive people do, or squiggly brain people do, as we like to call it. We need stimulation and we need to be overstimulated in order to like have any motion. Yeah. Otherwise, we completely stop. Yeah. And like at least I'll speak for myself. I feel like I can't even trust myself to get re-inspired. If I stop, then maybe I'll stop forever. Yeah. And I'll like never keep going and I'll never want to go back to work or whatever it might be. And so I've just like got to keep that forward motion.
Yeah. It's like constantly moving the target so that you keep the adrenaline going.
Right.
To keep the fire burning. But it's a cognitive distortion.
Totally. Also, adrenal fatigue. And ever heard of it? Overwhelm, burnout, familiar? Yes. But I love that concept of like, okay, this pace that I'm working at, is it actually sustainable? And asking myself that at the end of the week, like, does this feel good? Does this feel sustainable? Could I do this forever? Yeah. If no, or if I was like talking to you or like my child or something and looking at their workflow, being like, or my friend and saying like, you're going to burn out. Yeah. Like this is not sustainable. You cannot keep going at this pace. Yeah. That gives me more compassion for myself. And it's also where I'm like, oh, okay, that needs to shift. Because if I'm doing work at 1 o'clock in the morning or waking up at 5 in the morning to like finish something, that's just not, that ain't it.
And And then it's setting up an unrealistic workflow that you have to then keep up with.
And you can. You do burn out.
Yes.
Eventually you're going to burn out, or your work's going to be shitty.
Yeah.
Or both.
Usually both.
Yeah.
But everyone suffers.
So yeah, you said like walking in mud. For me, it's like clutter. Like when I feel like I just see, I see like piles, or I feel like things pile up, right? Like, oh my God, I haven't talked to any of my friends, like, and none of them. Like I've gone totally radio silent, or I put off like reading the tarot or just like my own spiritual practice for too many days in a row. It feels like I've like cluttered up. Exactly. Like those things are piling up, or like I haven't gone to dance class in such a long time, or I haven't exercised. And it kind of like it feels like it like picks up steam, you know, like the longer,
snowball.
Exactly. I wait to do it, like the bigger the pile gets. And then like literal piles, like when there's a pile of clothes in my room.
Inevitably.
Yeah. Or like
for me,
a pile of papers on the table, or my desk is really messy. Even though I'm a naturally messy person, I know that like that means I'm not taking the time for myself, because I'm not prioritizing and not taking the time to like shut things down and like finish my day or start my day. And that means I'm working too much. So for me, it's like that mental, emotional, and like literal clutter that I see. That tells me something is broken here, because it doesn't need to be like this. And when I feel like, when I'm saying to myself, there's not enough time, or I don't have time, I just have to remind myself, well, no. And what I'm saying is that's not a priority for me.
Right. That reframe is so helpful. One of the things that I think can be helpful that I was reading about in a newsletter that I subscribe to by Dan Shipper.
Hey, Dan.
It's called Super Organizers.
Ooh.
You would like...
Sometimes those newsletters make me sad because I'm not super organized.
Fair. I think this writer, Dan, he's got empathy.
That's nice, because I think the best productive, organized people are either the ones who it's impossible for, or feels impossible for. Really hard, like I will say me, and okay, for like us, people will say to me like, "You're so organized" sometimes, and I'm like, "You have no idea." You really have no idea. Yeah, but that's it. Like you had to work so hard at it that like you figure it out. Still, yeah. Or people who it's just like it comes so naturally to them, like Marie Kondo. You know. So this newsletter, I will say I tune in and out of. I just click on it every once in a while. And it seems to deliver the appropriate message at the appropriate time. Love a newsletter oracle. Yes, exactly. Dan Shipper, you are that. And in this one recent newsletter, he talks about the difference between the exploration phase and execution phase. This particular one is called Why You're Not Doing Creative Work. Naturally, clickbait for me. Wait, I think I read this. Probably. I wish he'd said exploration versus execution, because I would have read it then. Right. So what he goes into is how often people mistake the exploration phase and the execution phase, and people will quit during the exploration phase because it feels like they're not making progress on their goal. They're not getting anywhere. But the reason that it's so important is in the exploration phase, you don't know what the thing that you're exploring is necessarily going to be yet. You don't have all the information that you need or ideas. You don't even know like what's important, what's not. And he says any little breeze in the wrong direction might blow you off course, which I think is so relatable. And in the execution phase, you are inspired. You know what the thing is. You know how to make it. It feels urgent. You can't help but sit down and do it. And the only way to get there, he uses this wonderful example of Elton John writing Your Song in 20 minutes. And so that was his execution, but the exploration phase is everything that happened before that, which is a lifetime of things. That's like that Picasso anecdote. Yeah. And he says, in reality, you go back and forth between these phases often during a project, especially for a big project. And the really interesting thing is that the relationship between time and work output is different for each. So execution, there's a linear relationship between time and work output. And the more that you put in, generally, you'll be able to get more done. So it's kind of easy to see the results. You're very satisfied. You're like, it's 1-to-1. Yeah, exactly. You feel like inspired. Things are moving quickly. The momentum is easy to keep up. Yeah.
And what's more tricky is that in the exploration phase, there's a non-linear relationship between time and work output.
Huh.
So you're not really sure what you're making will be good or not. You're like, does this matter? Am I screaming into the void?
That's like being an artist, man. We've all
Exactly.
seen that, like, you know, graph of like, this is amazing. This sucks. I'm the best. I'm horrible. This is genius. This is absolute garbage. I should destroy it. That's like being an artist. But that's totally art is exploration rather than, I think, it's less execution.
Yeah, like so much of it is the exploration. And so when you're not really sure like what you're making, it's hard to kind of stay on track and feel like it's still worth the time, energy. And to know that you're in this phase can be helpful. Like to have an aha, like it's not for nothing. I actually am in the exploration phase, I think can be very liberating. If you're like, oh, it's June, I didn't get that thing done, fuck.
Yeah.
But then really you're like, actually, I'm still exploring because I'm still looking for inspiration. I'm still researching. I'm still meeting people and talking to them about this thing. And it almost kind of removes a certain type of pressure to have a specific outcome, which I really like.
I have a really good example of this, a personal example, a holisticism example. So we just retired our community, our paid community, The Cusp, and we opened it up for everyone. You should come join it.
It's pretty fun.
It's not called The Grext, and it's really fucking fun, and it's free. But we like paid a designer to help us make this back end on Squarespace like 6 months ago so that we could have a paywall, so we could take things off Mighty Networks. It was like a whole thing. We like paid her to do it. She did an amazing job. Shout out to Naide. But we never executed on it. And we both were kind of dragging our feet, but it was mostly me because I was in charge of the project. And I was kind of thinking about this the other day. I was like beating myself up. I was like, oh, I can't believe I spent that money doing that thing. We didn't end up doing it. But I realized as you're saying this, like I was still in the exploration phase of like, where this needs to go.
Yeah.
You know?
What's the home going to be? What makes the most sense?
And we weren't really sold on that idea, but we were like, I guess we'll do this.
Well, also we hadn't produced and made Good For You yet.
That's right.
It couldn't have been what it is today without everything in between.
We still were exploring and trying to figure out the best way to deliver what the nut of that information was. Which, if you're not subscribed to Good For You, it's our other podcast. It's really fun.
Also fun.
But that was so hard. That was like such a long period of exploration, honestly. Like it was a year of exploration pretty much.
Totally. We tried a lot of different stuff.
Totally.
If you think about that.
And
different formats.
Yeah. Sort of like we also were researching a ton.
Oh yeah.
Like
and still are.
Yeah, absolutely. But have really found something that I think works so much better than what was working before and feels more easeful. Yeah. Because The Cusp was totally working. It was just so much time for us to make that content.
Yeah, it wasn't the right format.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that idea of that research time, I think can be really challenging, especially for people who are natural students or seekers. And I think lots of those types of archetypes are probably listening because when you do too much research, you reach a point of diminishing returns. Or too much exploration where you're kind of like, you've gotten all the information you need.
And you're like stuck there.
Yeah. And then when you have too much info, you actually can get like analysis paralysis because you're always going to find more evidence for what you want to believe. And after a certain point, you just have to like go try things and execute. And then you can measure, okay, that's failing or that's working really well. And you can sort of reassess and move from there. But I think that people get stuck in that period of time.
Absolutely.
Just like you said, and then get frustrated because you don't feel like you're moving forward.
And if you're not transitioning to the execution part in this wonderful newsletter, Dan
we're going to have to link it
more about that. So I'll link it. He kind of just leads with this introduction of the difference between the two. And, interestingly enough, he puts it at the end of this part. He says, so when we talk about not having enough time to do creative work, what we actually mean is that we don't have enough time to do the exploration phase of creative work. So it could be either you could be stuck in it and you're not moving out of it into execution, or you're not even allowing yourself enough time to explore. So you're kind of trying to force.
Yeah. And I think this lines up with so much of what we've talked about on this podcast with having a second brain and like ambient research versus active research.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time taking in content. You are spending so much time taking in content just listening to this podcast, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully you're probably multitasking and doing other things. So this is somewhat ambient research for you. But our brains are not meant for storage. They're meant for cognition. So when we're doing ambient research and we're, not necessarily making like time for 3 days to just sit down and put our head down and research and focus only on one thing, which is completely unreasonable for most people. Most of us have to do sort of ambient research all the time over a longer period of time in that exploration phase. It can feel like a waste because we're not able to recall whatever we've studied, basically. So the exploration doesn't feel like we've had time, quote unquote, to explore because it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And we're not able to like take that information and transmute it into something useful to help us make a decision. It's like ambient noise almost.
Yeah.
And then you feel like
Totally.
a real dirtbag because you've just been scrolling on TikTok or Instagram when you said you were going to be doing research, and then you just feel bad about yourself, and nobody likes that.
You're like, what is this all for? What does it mean?
Right. And then you're like, TikTok's not one of my priorities, but I'm spending so much time on it.
Yeah. We talk about this in System Spells too. One of the awesome things about making a second brain part of your review practice, or however you write notes, like everyone has different ways of doing it. It doesn't have to be a second brain. It could be your notes app. I have a lot of very specific notes in my notes app that I transferred to like Notion later. And I've tried to do other things. This is an example.
Like what works for you.
But I'm just in the habit of always writing certain things in my notes app. It doesn't stay there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my inbox. And it's just how it works. And I tried to not do it. But so it's almost like whatever is sticking will go on Notion. It can be any way you want it to be as long as it works for you. But you can turn a lot of that scrolling, consuming that feels like it's not going anywhere into something useful, even if it's just like, oh, I now have a section for GIFs on Notion where I just like save gift ideas. And it's actually really nice.
I thought you meant GIFs.
No, I mean,
like
yes.
Giphy.
GIS.
I was like so smart.
I mean, I also have that.
We actually do have a place where we store memes.
Yeah. All extremely important for your sanity, for your health. But you can transform your relationship to a lot of the consumption and exploration so that it doesn't feel all for naught.
Yep. Yeah. So much of the time, like our negative self-talk and our meaning making of like, oh, me spending time on scrolling through this app means that I'm lazy, means that I'm bad, means that I'm whatever, trying to cope and distract myself. When like really, it can bring you pleasure and joy.
It's
and
part of the culture.
Yeah. And it can truly be research. Like there's so much information. There's so much content to take in. It's great. And so much of it is free.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a reframe, and also just like a check yourself. Like, okay, yeah. To what end? Like, why am I scrolling around, on this thing?
And to our earlier point in this discussion of kind of checking in and where am I at with maybe my systems that have been working or haven't been working, or goals that I did or maybe didn't set. Maybe I didn't set any goals this year because I was like, you know what? Fuck New Year's resolutions. Fuck goals. Whatever.
Love that.
Yeah.
Hate a SMART goal personally.
Yeah. And maybe you're like, I just wanted to tune the fuck out for the summer, not think about any of this stuff. Here's your permission.
Yeah. Here's your invitation, projectors.
Yes. Invitation. Love to be invited. But also to be kind of, I'm personally going to be with a lot of different groups of people over the next few weeks. And I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm also kind of calculating like, when's my alone time? And already thinking about that. And one of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about this episode was, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It can be me sitting alone in a park or
on the plane.
On the plane, exactly. Just taking a moment to be like, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? And that kind of simple reflection can do so much for the rest of your year.
Yeah, it ain't that deep.
No. But you know what is deep? Systems. Can't help it.
Yeah. So I think big takeaways, just to land this plane, wrap it up. Great time to do a review. Great time to do a check-in. Great time to reassess. Reassessment is clinically proven to help people be happier with their life and feel like they're actually moving with forward motion in a direction that matters, not on a wrong path for months and months and months because you haven't looked back and said, do I actually like this? Is this the direction I want to go in? And is this really working for me? Which is important. You know?
Yeah.
You can't just like put your blinders on and bulldoze through life. You got to be like, pull your head out, be a little self-aware.
And if you're also like, I don't know where I want to go. I'm lost. I'm too fucking tired. I can't even think about it.
Yeah.
One of the best ways to do this is to think about archetypes and future visioning.
100%.
It's kind of fun.
It's way more fun. It's way more fun than making a goal, I would say. How do you want to feel? How do you want your life to look? And what are the archetypes of that future version of you in that, whether it's alternate universe or parallel universe or future timeline of what we're in right now? Who is that person? And how can the priorities that you've clearly made for yourself in that version of your life be reflected in the actions and how you spend your time today? So figuring out, getting clear on your priorities and where it is that you want to go. Not even that, how is it that you want to feel in your life? And then also being honest about like what's really working and what's not working for you, because you have to crowd out the stuff that's not working. Like you can't just add more things in and be like, well, this thing's shitty, but I'll just add this nice thing. That's not how it works. You have a limited amount of energy. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. So you got to crowd some shit out. If it ain't working, toss it.
Let her go.
If you don't have an orgasm when you have sex with your partner, that's got to change.
Yes. With or without your partner.
Exactly.
Anytime.
Then maybe if you're feeling stuck on a goal, think about what Wallace was saying about exploration versus execution.
Yeah.
Where are you? Reassess. Like, okay, am I thinking I'm in the execution phase, but really I'm still in the exploration phase? And how much more information do I need in order to make a decision to be into execution? Like, what does that look like for me? And I think giving yourself parameters of like, okay, I'm going to research for like 2 more weeks for real. Or I'm going to actually start this project on July 1st really helps me personally.
Yeah. Or bring in some accountability, something we love here, because I personally love to work with people. I like to work alone on some things, but I'm actually more of a fan of collaboration.
You're a social butterfly.
It's true.
You are.
So to get stuff done, I need other people involved.
And you're a great collaborator.
Oh, I thank you. I am humbled. Grab a buddy.
Having an accountability buddy is always really helpful.
So key.
And be like gentle with yourself and remember that you're in this for the long haul, like, and that your life should be sustainable. And that includes your intuition. If you have gone too long without hearing your intuition or letting your intuition guide you, then I would say that is not a sustainable way to live, my friend, because you need that. Like desperately.
Oh, absolutely.
And oftentimes, I'll speak from the I here, when I'm feeling cluttered in my life is when I cannot hear my intuition. When I like feel like there's buildup everywhere, I'm just like, I'm just so in my head and I'm so anxious and it's really hard to hear what comes next. And that's when I feel the most lost. And kind of what I need to do when I'm in that moment is like declutter as much as possible. And it's really hard because you're afraid that you're going to make the wrong decision, but don't worry. It will become clear as soon as that clutter begins to sort of settle, like, and you'll know what to do. Or if you let go of the wrong thing, it's okay. You can always pick it up and try again. Well, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you have some time, whether it's in the next few weeks or in the next few months over the summer, to just take a beat and look around at the gorgeous life that you have and think about the life that you want.
The Gorgeois life that you live.
To the Gorgeois.
Also, if you feel like some accountability, we would be
thrilled, delighted, honored
if you joined us. We are doing a System Spells intensive very soon, actually. It's really happening this weekend.
Yeah, like ASAP. ASAP Rocky.
It is happening on the 18th and 19th. And if you can't join us live for the entire time, you will still get the recordings.
Yeah. It's our best-selling class, System Spells. It's like the foundation of pretty much everything that we teach in Notion for Magical Baddies. And I think it's the class that we hear the most people say, like, this literally changed my life. It's definitely the class that we have most people cry in because they feel seen and heard and they feel like, they can finally breathe. And it's like such a wonderful class for witches. If you're allergic to the idea of systems, like I totally am, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by everything that you get out of Notion for Magical Baddies System Spells. And we're doing it as like this intensive 2 days because people love to binge this class. So we figured we'd meet you there.
It's pretty life altering also.
Yeah.
Information.
It's pretty intense, but it's also like one of those things that when you're in the zone, you like don't want to stop doing it because once it clicks, you're like, I'm here now. I live here now.
Yeah. Oh, I need to redo all my systems immediately.
Yeah. And this is a great time to do it. We did strategically plan this with summer solstice so you can work with the energy. This is like the best time to possibly do it. You know, you're welcome.
Yep.
And you can sign up at notionforbaddies.com/system spells. We'll put the link below.
Would love to see you there.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today.
And we'll see you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. The 12th House is produced by yours truly, Wallace Miller Blanchard. Our theme music is made by Nathan McKay, and our wonderful editing is done by Softer Sound Studios, who you can find more information about in our show notes.